Today we're going to talk about Practicode. What is it? Why do you need it? Do you really need it? Does it qualify as experience? What does it look like? Is it hard? But before we even get that far, let's take it back one step, and I'm going to talk to you about the apprenticeship status. Hey everyone, I'm Victoria. I'm a medical coder and auditor, and I like making cool stuff that helps people out. If you haven't already and you're interested in getting more medical coding content, I would highly encourage you to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can get alerts when I post new episodes. You can also check below if you want to join channel membership and unlock custom emojis and behind the scenes information. So let's talk about Practicode. Practicode is for coders who are certified through the AAPC. So the AAPC has two credentials that have an apprenticeship status, the CPC and the COC, and there are requirements that you have to complete in order to remove your apprenticeship status. Now, I'm not going to talk about my personal thoughts on the apprenticeship status because obviously I would love it if none of us were apprentices and we all were seen as being just certified and qualified and we could just go out there and get any job right off of the bat after certification. I would love that. Who wouldn't love that? I'm just tackling what it is and how we navigate through this. So when you sit for your CPC or COC, you're almost by default considered an apprentice. I think the only way that you can not ever have an apprenticeship designation is if you submit something like 2 years experience prior to sitting for your exam so that you're not designated as an apprentice. But if you don't submit anything in advance, you're going to by default be designated as an apprentice coder. There's a couple of ways to remove that apprentice status. The more traditional way is to just get 2 years experience. That's the way I kind of had to remove my apprentice status, was I had to get into a billing office and just work there for 2 years and have them submit paperwork saying, yes, Victoria has worked with CPT codes, ICD-10-CM codes, HCPCS codes, daily applying codes, blah, 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 blah. Submitted that on official paperwork. I had to have a coworker write a letter as well and sent that out to the AAPC. You can find all of the information, I'm going to link it below, on how to get your apprenticeship status removed, the official word that they give. Now there's two different things that will each take a year off of that requirement. One of them is if you have 80 contact hours of education through a school or a training program like an approved instructor, and you submit that paperwork to the AAPC, they give you the green light and they say, yep, you're good to go. That will remove 1 year off of the two. So you could do a year of experience and have your year of education. That'll remove your apprenticeship status. The other thing that can remove 1 year of apprentice status is Practicode, and Practicode is something that you have to pay additionally for. I'll list the prices and some information right over here when I edit this video. Practicode is basically real redacted medical cases, meaning they were live in a medical record. At some point, someone removed all of the patient identifying information, and you have to read through these records. A lot of them are surgical notes, evaluation and management services, any kind of notes that you could potentially see as a coder, and they just give you little spaces of blocks that you fill in to identify the codes for them. So it's not like the exam where it's multiple choice, it's really more real life coding, so it is more difficult. So you have to pay additionally for access, and you get access for 18 months, and it's on the AAPC Blackboard account. There's no CEUs that you can get for Practicode unless you purchased one of their little specialty packages, which I recently did because Practicode didn't exist when I was an apprentice coder. So I wanted to see, hands-on, like what everyone was experiencing when they were talking about Practicode, how difficult it was, how it functioned. So if you're a certified coder and you're just looking for one of those specialty packages, they do issue a few CEUs for completing those specialty packages. I have the one right now on general surgery. And one of the things to understand too about Practicode is it's not like a class. You don't have like teacher support. So if you're struggling with a case, you kind of have to keep trying at it. You can, if you have concerns, maybe email someone, but there's not a lot of one-on-one student support for Practicode. Now, before I go in and do a little bit of a demonstration on what it looks like, I want to talk about this experience question. And I talked about this in the interview that I had with Bertram, I'll link that up here, about the Practicode and getting your apprenticeship status removed versus experience. So will buying a Practicode and doing the 80 contact hours to remove your apprenticeship status be seen by employers as the same as having 2 years of experience? No. The thing though is there are some job applications that if you look at them, they will specifically say no CPCAs. They don't say anything about the experience or not, they just say no CPCAs. So getting your apprenticeship status removed is one step in that direction. It'll open up some more doors for jobs that you can apply to. The other thing to consider is in a lot of these larger organizations where they have maybe a recruiter that hires not just coders, but they hire, medical record staff, they hire physicians, they hire nurses, anesthesiologists, whoever, they might not know all the difference between the types of coding credentials. So they're just looking for CPC, and they were told, oh, maybe don't get apprentices, the CPCAs. So if yours say CPCA on it, they might look at that and go, oh, I was told not to hire apprentices, and that might be one that they are not going to look at, versus they just has the CPC credential, or they might just have that tunnel vision like, oh, I just want CPC and this says CPCA. So just because of some of those misunderstandings of the recruiters, again, do I wish it was different? Yeah, but that is something to consider. So I think getting that apprenticeship status is a very good step in the right direction. I think it's a great thing to work on getting your apprenticeship status removed. Now, if you're someone who was hired right out of school and you're going to get that experience, maybe you're not in a big rush and you don't want to invest that money in Practicode. It really depends on your situation and your thoughts on it. So do I think it's worth the money to pay for the Practicode and get your apprenticeship status removed? Yeah, if you have the money. I mean, not everyone will need it though. If you're already got your foot in the door and you're getting a coding position and you can just get your 2 years experience, you don't necessarily need to invest the extra money. There is a little bit of a relief there, like, oh, I finally got rid of my apprentice status and I'm a full-fledged coder. So I can totally see people wanting to pay for Practicode to get rid of it just for that reason, because that feeling of relief, like you no longer have that apprentice designation. Some people do kind of see it as a little bit of a scarlet letter. So this is Practicode. Ooh, ah. If you go over here to course content, that is where my course materials are for my general surgery specialty package. I imagine that the full Practicode looks very similar. So on here, and I'm going to blur out in my editing the whole record. It would not be appropriate for me to be showing off their proprietary information. All right, so I am in the general surgery specialty module. So over here on this left-hand side is where the case itself is. If you see here on the right-hand side, here's where you put your CPT or HCPCS codes, any associated modifiers for that line, the number of units, and then the linkage. And the linkage is the A, B, C, D here, E, F, G that you would put over here for all the different diagnoses that you may be selecting. So they don't tell you how many CPTs, they don't tell you how many diagnosis codes. Each time you want to add in an additional one, you can just add them in. They do include a calculator, so if you need to figure out the RVUs so that you can put them in the correct order, there is an RVU calculator that they will provide for you that you can tabulate it. So let me just put in a couple of codes here so you can see how this will look then. 11602, 1 unit, and then calculate, and it will give you all the different relative value units for these. So we know that this would be the order that we would have to put them in based off of the highest RVU to the smallest RVU. So there's a summary, there's a comment if you need to leave a comment for a situation that you faced. You can also flag something if you want to come back to it later. This is the submit answer button. There's a save and exit and an end test, and you can go back and forth to different questions if you want to skip around a little bit. But it is very hands-on coding cases, so you need to put the CPT codes in, you need to know how many you need to add, you need to know if they are bundled in together, you need to know what modifiers are going on them, you have to put the units, you have to link it up to the appropriate diagnosis code. So it's definitely more complicated than just taking the exam where you can just pick something out of 4 different options. So is it worth it to get your apprenticeship status removed? Yes. Do I wish that we didn't have to do that? Is it easy? No, I don't think Practicode is easy. I've heard just a lot of different coders saying that they find it very difficult because now you've taken that multiple choice away from them. They actually have to code live records, but it is much more realistic to a real life coding scenario situation. I'll even admit that the first case that they threw at me for the specialty module, I found pretty difficult. So if you're someone that's motivated and you really want to get that apprentice status removed and that Practicode is the way to go, make it a goal for yourself. Look at how many cases you have to do, figure out what your end date is that you want to finish it on, break it down into chunks, go, I'm going to do this many cases this week, I'm going to do this many cases this week, and think of maybe even ways to reward yourself, or even things like telling your friends like, hey, I'm doing this Practicode, keep me in check, I want to finish this by the end of May, so I'm going to need your support. And because it's not a test, they're coding scenarios, you can use your additional resources. You can search for things, you can use your encoders, you can use your additional resource books, medical dictionaries. All of that is fine because you're really just trying to figure out the codes themselves, not just eliminate them out of 4 different options. If you have started on Practicode, let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. I will see you guys in the next video, and until then, you just keep on coding on.